Hi, my name is Penny and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about flood insurance and some of the pros and cons and the real story behind flood insurance. Okay, the flood insurance is actually administered through the Federal Emergency Management Agency in what is called a National Flood Insurance Program. They do have private flood insurance available as well in other insurance companies, just not as well known and not as spread out as the National Flood Insurance Program. Okay, if you buy a home in a flood zone, it's going to be rated on whether it's low risk or high risk. And if you are financing that house, your mortgage company is going to require you to have flood insurance of some sort. Okay? If you're in a low risk area, maybe it's a 500-year floodplain, you're looking at an average cost of about $700 a year or $58 a month added to your monthly mortgage payment. Over the cost of the 30-year loan is going to be $21,000. Now, after your loan is paid off, you are not obligated to continue that flood insurance. But if you do face a flood insurance, your homeowners or a flood in the future, your homeowner's insurance will not cover a flood. One key note about that. Now, if you live in a high risk area, maybe it's a 100-year floodplain, and you're looking at an average cost of about $3,200, $3,200 a year, or about $270 a month. Over the life of a 30-year loan, that's about $97,000. That's a lot of house that you're not buying, or a lot of debt you're not paying off, or a lot of savings you're not saving because you're paying for a flood insurance that you may or may not need. Now, what does flood insurance actually cover? It covers one building. Okay? If your residential property has a mother-in-law suite in the back, you're going to need two policies, okay? Because your one policy is only going to cover your residential home, and that's $250,000 for the building. It is not going to cover any of your garages unless that garage is attached to your house, and then it's limited to 10%. Now, your personal property is going to have a coverage of about $100,000 for the coverage, and there's going to be a $5,000 deductible. FEMA on their website says that in 2019 they paid out an average claim of $52,000. So, there's a lot at the top and there's a lot at the bottom, but that first $5,000 is going to be your responsibility regardless, okay? Now, what does flood insurance cover? It's going to cover that insured building and, of course, its foundation. It's going to cover your electrical and your plumbing systems, your central air, your furnace and water heaters, such as that. Appliances. It's going to cover like your refrigerator, your stove, your hot water heater, and carpet, kind of maybe. And the reason I say carpet, kind of maybe, is if you install it over an unfinished wood floor, just the basic, wood slab on the floor that builders put down, they're going to cover that carpet as part of your building. If that carpet is installed over hardwood floors, like mine are, it's considered part of the content. Okay, that's going to be an important piece because carpet can get very pricey in a house along with those other floorings that you'd have to cover. Now, your content covers is going to be like your clothes, your curtains, your furniture, your personal items, your electronics, portable items, tools, things like that. And that carpet that wasn't covered in the property coverage. Now, what happens when a flood actually happens? Sometimes you have warning, sometimes you don't. I was in a flood in Minnesota when the Red River overflowed. We had weeks of warning. It was possibly going to flood. We had time to think proactively in order to save our stuff. So what we did is, we were doing sandbagging. We got an extra generator for our house in case we lost power. We got an extra sump pump to sit down by our existing sump pump in case the first one gave out. We picked up some fuel for that generator in case our electric didn't work. We also took everything out of the basement that we didn't want ruined and that was important to us. We moved it up to a top floor. Those kinds of things, they will actually reimburse you if you are doing damage preventing things. So if you're buying the bags in the sand, I have muscles I do not or did not ever know I had bagging sand. But they are going to reimburse you for those types of things. Okay? Now, the flood takes place. Now what? First thing you're going to do is you're going to call your homeowner's insurance and get them on board. And you're going to call your flood insurance agent. Okay? Now, if you think a flood is coming and you run out and buy flood insurance, it's not going to cover you unless that flood insurance was in place for at least 31 days. You can't buy it at the last minute and hope it covers you. You have to have it in place prior to the flood. You've talked to FEMA, you've talked to your insurance agent, and what's going to happen is they're going to be sending out an adjuster, usually within 48 hours, but during, catastrophes like this, it could be delayed because they may not be able to get into your house yet. It's still maybe a no travel zone. It may be filled with water. Power lines may still be down. It may not be safe to get into that property. And until it is safe, they're not going to be able to get that adjuster into your property. Your FEMA and your insurance agent are going to want to see photos of the damage. They're going to want to see a photo of every item over $100 per their website. They're also going to want to see receipts and estimates and photos of the make, model, and serial numbers of your appliances and furnace and air conditioner and samples of like flooring, drapes, things like that. Now, I know from personal experience, when a property has been flooded, it is gross. The waters or the windows break out, the muddy water drains into the basement, chunks of mud and gross, and in some cases, sewer systems back up because now the water level is above the sewer system and you have a floating turd, and you're now dealing with all of that gross. I do not want to wade through that nasty water to go collect photos. I do not want to wade through there to find the back of my TV and wipe the slime off to get the serial number and things like that. So, being proactive before you are even looking at a situation of a fire or flood or anything that may happen, I encourage you to take a video camera, walk around your house, videotape every possible thing you can, zeroing in on the back of that TV, zeroing in on the back of your computer, the water heaters, and things like that. Upload them to the net so that you have access to them without going home to get it. Also, scan in those receipts and those estimates and any other photos that you may have taken, maybe the estimates for or the cost for installing that carpet and wallpaper and things like that. Scan them all in, put them in a file. Hope to God you never need them, but if you need them, it's as simple as taking it, emailing it to the adjuster, and you've now given him what you need. Because you are going to be required to give him what is called a proof of loss statement within 60 days. Okay? You're going to have to make that list within 60 days or your claim is going to be denied. No ifs, ands, buts. It's the government day 61. It's no longer valid. They just stamp it with denied and send it on back to you. Okay? So make sure that you have everything in place that you need to do to get it to them. Because when you're in a flood, if that house is not habitable, you are now looking for a place to live. Your cars may or may not be flooded. You don't have your medicines. You're worrying about your dog and your kids and school and feeding and medication and things like that. You don't have on the front of your mind 60 days, I need to get it, because it doesn't feel that important. Feeding your baby is vital. This statement doesn't feel as important and you can easily miss that 60-day mark. Okay? The next thing is it is going to be delayed based on how long that flooding event takes, because they're going to have to get into it. They can't process your claim until they see what the damage is at the end. They're not going to be able to process your claim if there's 500 people standing there waiting for that one adjuster. Okay? It can take a long time to figure out exactly what your damage is. And not all damage is going to show up immediately either. So there is going to be a process to add future damage that you weren't aware of. But things like mold, it is going to be your responsibility to get in there and get that property cleaned up as quickly as you possibly can to prevent further damage. Well, with the pandemic going on and contractors are so hard to get a hold of now, can you imagine if 100 of your neighbors are all flooded and that flood damage technicians, trying to air out and dehumidify all these houses? There's just not enough time, there's not enough bodies, there's not enough equipment to get everything done, and mold is going to happen. But you got to be able to prove that you did everything you can to prevent further damage, okay? Or your claim will be denied. All right, coverage in basements. A lot of people do not realize that there's very limited coverage in your basement. It is not going to include any basement improvements or most of your personal belongings. So it's going to pay to replace your unfinished brick basement, the electrical and the water heater and the furnace and those kind of things, but nothing else. So that beautiful man cave you made, or maybe you have a woodworking shop in the basement, maybe your wife is a huge canner and the pantries are filled with, you know, hundreds of toilet paper and canned goods and all of her craft supplies, whatever. None of that is going to be covered because basements really do have very limited coverage. Okay? You are also going to be paying for a lot of expenses up front. You can ask for an advance or a partial payment, but it's not guaranteed and certainly not going to be given to you until they get that claim processed and know that it's not going to be denied. Now, FEMA says on their website it's going to take 4 to 8 weeks for a claim to be finalized from when you get them the information. Okay, so a lot's going to depend on you, like I said. But they were also bragging on their website that Hurricane Sandy back in October of 2012, 30% of the FEMA claims were closed by the end of February. Now, Sandy happened in October, so you've got October, November, December, January, February. In 5 months, 30% of those claims were closed. That's not 4 to 8 weeks. And how long did it take for the rest of those 70 claims to be closed? You are not looking at a quick fix. This is the government. Nothing is fast. Kind of depends on who's in office and who's fighting who and what political thing is going on. And not even getting into politics, it's government. It's going to take a long time. Okay? Now, if they deny your claim, they're going to send you an appeal process, and you must file that appeal process within 60 days. Again, that 60-day limit. You hit 61, they're going to deny it. 18% of all appeals are denied simply because people have mailed in that application past that 60-day mark. I'd make sure that I'm sending it registered mail. I'd make sure I'd have a return receipt, and I'd send it before day 55, just so that there's no question I made that 60-day mark. Okay? Once you file an appeal, they say on their website that the decision is going to be made within 90 days. What scares me though is in Puerto Rico, they just had that huge, national or tragic event. 8 out of 10 appeals were denied. So if you're getting to the process where you're going to have to, do an appeal, you have an 80% chance that they're going to tell you no and that none of your stuff is covered. Then your homeowners is not going to cover it either. And you're pretty much out of luck. You've paid all this money and none of it's going to come back to you at all. And you're still required to pay it going forward per your mortgage company. So in my experience and my bottom line is, unless you are so personally invested into that property that you have to have that floodplain property, do your homework, be prepared, have a backup plan, have something in place, because all of these things are going to happen. They are going to delay. You're going to pay out of money, and you're going to have to deal with a lot of stuff on your own because 100 of your neighbors are asking at the same time. All right, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to comment below and check out some of my other videos. I'm going to be breaking apart the mortgage payment and the car payment and, of course, credit reports. Thanks and have a great night. Bye.